said I'd grow into it.
Discipline. The self-control of the one who wields it.
Years ago, this candle blessed our family came to life with magic.
Soon, we're going to be introducing a social version.
Hey, and I'm JR, character artist and 3D animator. On my social networks, you can find me as JR Carrillo. I will explain my workflow from scratch to animation of a 3D character. But first, I will explain the use of the 3D technologies in various industries. The use of these technologies and the various software allow the creation of high-quality productions using software such as ZBrush, Maya, 3ds Max, Blender, Houdini, etc. The modeling, rigging, texturing, compositing, maybe look dev, and other artists use this tool to do it. For video games, the same tools mentioned previously are used for the creation of video games. Terms like rigging or animation are also used in this industry. Unlike there are several technical aspects to consider. If we talk about the sculptures, there are various possibilities such as traditional sculpture, modeling of collective figures, 3D printing, and medical 3D printing. They are the most important in this industry. An example of this kind is this type of modeling for a possible 3D printing from concept art. Again, terms like modeling or animation are terms that you will be hear often in this tutorial. For example, we look at the possible use of the rigging or maybe blend shapes to animate breathing and muscle movement for Kratos. Similar tools are applied for CG productions such as video games and movies. Maybe you already realize that the use of modeling, rigging, texturing, etc. Are tools used in one more than one type of productions. In this case, the creation of character that is part of the development of metaverse, metaverse, and famous movies, as we see at the moment. The characters, movies, etc. I will explain my personal pipeline. I always start with the search for reference, like the ones mentioned previously, to proceed the modeling, in this case for two characters. I use ZBrush and Maya. The retopology is done with the Maya Quadro tool. I texture a character with Substance Painter and Mary. There are other tools to do it. I do the render test with Arnold and Redshift. For the grooming I use action from Maya, but again, you have other options like the Yeti plugin. Model the clothes with Marvelous Designer. You can do it with the dynamics in ZBrush. I rig the character with Maya and its tools such as joints, constraints, curves. As well as the blend shapes with the shape editor of Maya and finish animating and rendering the character. Okay, let's begin. To start working, I always start with a search for various types of reference, such as modeling, animating, texturing, etc. These rigging animating artists are great if you want to improve on the subject. They offer amazing courses. It is promotional content, but they have been very helpful to me. We look how to deform the geos and animate the character. This will be seen later in this tutorial. My references are also for the search for texturing, grooming, props, lip sync. Since I will try to imitate reality, but to do so I have to look for reference from reality itself. Since if mental references are used, they can be wrong. Really wrong. We observe how the body and face behave through the muscles and composite and the bones that are below it, which allows the body to behave in different ways. However, the behavior in each character will be different. If we apply the mechanics and the functioning for reality in this character, it will appear to be alive in reality. So that the principles can be applied and modified for this tutorial. Metaverse for Encuentro movie will be modeled, rigged, textured, and animated from scratch to the rendering of animation sequences. Also, collecting as many possible references. Let's begin. I start the modeling stage with ZBrush, always observing my reference and apply them without modeling from memory. For continuing with the reported stage with the Maya Quadro tool for the use of the body, head, and very important, the head. Then, I focus on the time modeling, which can include grooming using ZBrush fiber mesh to better observe the character. For fixing geos later, I fix possible mistakes in my mesh since Maya will not allow me to continue if I don't do it in this stage. For the body texturing, once my mesh is ready, I start texturing. It's important that the UV maps are correct. I usually apply smart material or I usually create them myself. For eye texturing, in this case of the eyes, I texture them using Mary, but you can use other software. It doesn't really matter as long as you can render them in your preferred render once I have it. I proceed to make tests of rendering and modeling of accessories, which allows me to have overview of the character. It's important to break in the workflow to observe possible mistakes. For the grooming, to start with the grooming of the character, the meshes must be wild with the correct UV maps, a stage done with previously, and that allow me to continue. For clothes modeling, and this stage the model is ready, which allows modeling the clothes to adapt to the other geos. I use Marvelous Designer to go and import them in Maya. You can also model them in ZBrush. For rigging with the geos of body, accessories, clothes, hair ready, I proceed to rig the character with the use of joints, constraints, curves, etc. to do it. The hair should not necessarily be already drawn, it's something personal. Possible the geometry has some flat normals or vertices or out of place. I solve it manually or with the cleanup tool of Maya, but be careful with this tool. Before using blend shapes to animate character expression, I prepare the scene, geometry, texture, etc. to do rendering tests later. I usually import Melee Studio into the scene. In the animating stage, animating the character means that all the steps done before have to be done right. However, you can always correct them again and don't forget to save reference if you're going to do it. For the rendering stage, I did the rendering with Arnold and some tests with Redshift. However, with Arnold, I feel more comfortable and do everything there. This is the final result and ambient occlusion render. Okay, in this moment, we look the use of the blend shapes to define the geo, in this case the heat geo, and then animating, and use these tools, constraints, maybe blend shapes to move the different parts. For expression, I rendered some expression that the way needs to improve. I used blend shapes to animate and some constraints for hair, glasses, etc. This was a tutorial of my personal workflow that applied to my character creation from scratch to animation. I hope I help you. I'm Xavier Flores Carrillo, aka JR 3D Artist. See you later.